as you were saying.
So when what's the name of that movie?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Big Lebowski. When that came out, I went to go see it, and I was living in Massachusetts, and I did not like it at all. I thought it was pretty bad. Very disappointed. And then I recently rewatched it because I had to. I did a job for Brain Dead. I drew some Big Lebowski T-shirts for their theater, and I liked it a lot more now that I've been living in Los Angeles for over 20 years. It had a lot more. It resonated with me a lot more than it did when it first came out. I still feel like there's still some problems with it, but I definitely liked it more than I did. And I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood while I had lived in Los Angeles after 20 years, and I still think it sucks.
Right. Well, maybe you need to move back to Massachusetts and watch it.
It's not worth it, man. I'd rather just hate that movie and stay where I is.
Stay where I is. I was gonna say, I mean, like the part where he's on the set of that Gunsmoke TV show, and like, you know, where he has that freak out and the whole. I mean, that shit's awesome. Like, what a fantastic. You don't like that?
No, it was so like here was the sequence. He's acting and then it's like, oh man, it's fucking up. It's not working. It's not working. What am I gonna do? He goes into his trailer. Come on, man, get it together. Get it together. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on. And then he goes out, and guess what? He does a great job. What a great story. Who cares? That's what I say.
Yeah, but I mean, but then that's what I say. There's that whole sort of aspect of like being outclassed by that little girl, and then like
who cares? Like I really don't care.
I mean,
I don't care about the little girl. The little girl's like, oh, that was the best acting I've ever seen.
Yeah,
and that was like literally his whole arc. Like, boy, he's a has-been. He's washed up, and then he does this motive. He like talks to himself in the mirror, and suddenly his problem is gone. That's not interesting.
No, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. I was totally transfixed by like, you know, I can kind of agree with you when it comes down to like judging the movie on a whole or as a whole rather, and also like I think the ending for me is just like a huge huge fucking question mark. Like it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna end this movie in just like sort of cartoon, you know, quote unquote ultra violence. It doesn't
the ending it's as well, like unlike the Inglourious Bastards, where, you know, this sort of fantasy Hitler murder felt somewhat cathartic, you know, because it's sort of like, you know, we're killing Hitler, whereas here in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it sort of was, it didn't, like, these two fictional characters get to kill the Manson family in this real horrific way. It felt like, why, like if we're going to play with history, it would have been more satisfying if like Sharon Tate like struck back and you know, like killed the Manson, like the people in that house, like, you know, all the people who lived in that house, like Abigail Folger and Sharon Tate, like they should have been the ones who got to kill the Manson family, not these two fictional Hollywood people.
I mean,
it didn't feel satisfying, and the fact that like, and it's sort of like, because this is a fantasy, like let's just go all the way with it, like have them like tear the baby out of Sharon Tate, and then she fucking like rises up and she grabs the umbilical cord and wraps it around Tweety From's throat and fucking strangles her, and then fucking Charles Manson comes in with a machine gun and starts like shooting people, and then fucking Brad Pitt comes in, and then like, you know, like let's like really go for it.
I don't think I would have liked it more if that's what happened.
I think that because now I didn't like it at all, so anything would have been an improvement.
Right. I liked how it, you know, I mean, Inglourious Bastards is like this, you know, very clear fantasy, and it plays out like a, you know, like a something that's like you can kind of keep at arm's length. Like it's not real. It's like speculative history, and there's sort of this, like I said already, fantasy element to it, where you can kind of have like audacious things happening, and it's kind of fun. But I don't know. I kind of liked how for the most part, even though there is quirky moments in the film, it's mostly grounded, and it just kind of throwing that all away at the end for this sort of this bizarre, what I thought was just bizarre ending. Like I just was like, okay, so you're gonna end like that, like you're gonna make it into a completely different movie, and it's almost like this. It almost seemed desperate, like when a small kid tries to tries to tell you a joke or something, and they're just desperate to get some kind of reaction out of you to make you laugh or something, and it's just like, it's not working. Whatever you're doing, the timing's off, like the tone is off, everything's for me, it didn't work at all. And then I remember people telling me, this stupid girl at the office, I was like, I didn't get the ending, I thought it was weird. And then she's like, "Oh, that's the whole point, that's what he does," referring to Quentin Tarantino. And I'm just like,
right.
I don't know that that's what he always does. I mean, Jackie Brown wasn't like that. Like, I mean, Kill Bill was consistently one thing all the way through. It was one tone all the way. It's not like he switches gears at the end all the time. That doesn't happen all the time.
Okay, so for example, like Django is satisfying because he's held prisoner by this guy, and he kind of like rises up and defeats the bad guy, because that's the person who has been punishing him and torturing him and all that shit.
Yeah, the guy who's being wronged should be the one who takes revenge. I get what you're saying.
Right. So you don't get that at the end of the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You get these two imaginary, fantastical characters. Suddenly, like, they're so amazing, and then they just kind of like, and the other thing too is like their foes aren't as like, they don't seem as intimidating as any of the bad guys in any of the other films. It's just like a bunch of women. And I know, in reality, it was, a couple of women and a guy who went into that house and killed all those people, but they didn't do it in some sort of like blitzkrieg style fashion. They kind of snuck in and they caused like confusion, and nobody knew what was going on, and suddenly like they were stabbing people. So it wasn't satisfying. And then like the way that they sort of like were killing these Manson teenagers, dragging their faces across the stucco wall, like it didn't feel earned.
Yeah, to me it just felt like an attempt at claptrap. It felt desperate. Please like me. Am I doing right? Is this good? And
also, unlike the Nazi movie too, like the Nazis, like they deserve to be killed because they're doing Nazi things. So like, we know that these guys deserve it. We know in retrospect that these Manson people are going to do bad things, but up until that point, they haven't really done anything other than like look through garbage dumpsters. So the fact that like he has this like incredibly violent, like Brad Pitt like dragging the lady's face across the wall and the flamethrower and like really brutalizing these people. It feels, again, it doesn't feel earned. Like it's sort of like these people really haven't done anything that egregious as of yet. We're only watching it from the perspective of like, oh well, we know that they're going to do something awful, but within the movie, within the confines of the movie, they haven't earned the horrible end that they get.
Well, listen, man, I feel very differently about the film. Like on a scene by scene basis, I'm completely transfixed. I think, regardless of whatever your feelings are, this is uninteresting because like if you sort of reduce it to just kind of like he does this, then he does this, then he does this, and that's not interesting. I can accept that. The guy Brad Pitt beats up Bruce Lee, so he's the coolest guy around. Like that's something a kid would come up with. I understand that criticism, but like,
But I mean, also but like you could also say that about Kill Bill or his other successful movies. Like this, I would qualify myself as a fan of his films.
Excuse me.
I think the majority of his films. I think like the only the Hollywood one and probably Death Proof are my least favorite of his films. I feel like the Hollywood one might be my very least favorite. But other than that, every other film I've seen of his, I've enjoyed to some degree or another. So, one eggplant for this one.
All right. I mean, probably my least favorite of his films was Inglourious Bastards because I got to tell you, I feel like he was a little tough on the Nazis, I feel like he was a bit tough on the Nazis.
He wasn't fair.
little one-sided viewpoint, if you ask me. But let's move off this because we're
not even here to talk about this shit.
We're not even. Well, number one, we're not even here to talk about this. Number two, we're completely on different planets when it comes to the opinion of these movies. There's not even a conversation. We're just talking past each other with the thing, just because we view it so differently. Anywho. Maybe it's just like, it's kind of like when I watch those modern Westerns, those Taylor Sheridan movies, and I kind of am like, because I'm not American, and I have kind of like, I still am susceptible to sort of like.
You're not an American yet.
Right. Yeah. I don't know, man. I might be soon when we become the 51st state after Trump takes over. I guess I could possibly renounce my citizenship. Like all the Americans that I've talked to, if they try to dodge their taxes by putting them into bank accounts like overseas, like the Americans have their fingers in all the banks, they'll just put a lien and get their taxes no matter what. Mm-hmm. So that's what you get for being American. I can still kind of like dodge my Canadian taxes.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I can definitely dodge my fucking Taiwanese taxes. I dodged them for fucking almost 8 years. And then I just one day was like, I fucking better pay these or I'm going to end up going to jail. And then I ended up paying like very little fines for that too. So, if you're not into paying your taxes, maybe think about moving to Taiwan. But anyways, let's talk about some films today. We're talking about two films that are about kind of like being a horny, savage, jungle incel, and then one film that's not about that, right?
Yeah.
Which one do you want to? Right. Well, do you want to start? You want to start with Abducted?
Sure.
Okay, great. So Abducted is a I think what's that? 1986 is it?
Sounds right.
Let's take a look. Let's just make sure that we get this right. Abducted, and it is a 1986 film. Yes, it is, and it's directed by a guy named Boone Collins, which is a sick ass name. Sounds like a guy who lives in the woods himself, and it stars Dan Haggerty, which we all remember from
Grizzly
Hobgoblins.
Adams.
Say what?
Oh yeah, no, he was in Elves.
Oh, is it Elves? Okay, I thought it was Hobgoblins. I always mix those two.
But most famous for Grizzly Adams, the television show.
Sure. And we also have a guy who I've never heard of before named Lawrence King Phillips, who plays Vern in the film, and also Roberta Weiss, who's a pretty hot little number in this film. Canadian film.
I was going to say, I think it's Canadian.
It is Canadian. This is absolutely Canadian, and and this was a wonderful little gem that I came across. This is kind of up there with Rituals for me, as far as just sort of like little kind of small-ish Canadian movies that are mostly shot in the woods with people running around. Mm-hmm. And that's another movie with Hal Holbrook, Rituals. Did you ever see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, as far as Abducted is concerned, why don't you go ahead and give the listeners a rundown on what this film's about?
So that little, so that girl, so that girl's running through the woods. That little piece of ass is running through the woods.
That little hot thing.
Canadian piece of ass is running through the woods with her tracksuit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, a disgusting man jumps out of the woods and, abducts her, as the title says, and drags her back to his cabin in the woods, and wants to make her his, I guess, either sex slave / wife. I don't know if that's redundant.
Same thing.
And she does not like it.
Yep, she's too thrilled.
She's not on board. Should I keep going?
No, that's a good place to start. I mean, what's interesting is kind of like what happens on the way to the cabin, because there's a part. I was watching this with my girlfriend, and one of the reasons why I knew this thing was like kind of special is that something of this caliber, like this kind of low budget running around in the woods kind of movie, is the kind of thing that it's like putting like a tablecloth over a parrot's cage for my girlfriend. Like if I put it on, she'll just fall asleep within 5 minutes. Like it's just like a tranquilizer dart. But she actually was very invested in this movie and stayed awake for the whole thing. I'm like, okay, well there you go. This movie just has something akin to raw charisma. You're just kind of drawn in, and the story's simple enough that it's, you don't have to like really put, you don't have to really intellectualize, but at the same time, it's not so simple that there's nothing to it. There's stuff going on, and there's interesting little pushes and pulls.
It definitely it helped, like the performances of everybody. Basically, they were all very good. Like I was very, especially Vern,
Vern
as this psychopath mountain man. He's a lot more complex than just like a traditional, maniac in the woods.
He's like the castle freak.
A little bit. Like he's like castle freak with a little bit more of a brain. Right. Less retarded maybe. But yeah, his their sort of interaction and their relationship is somewhat like it feels like a more sophisticated type relationship than just kind of like, all right, look at this. This is a movie about some dude who drags some girl out into the woods to fuck her. Like this seems, just more. Because of the way these two actors are interacting, it just seemed more complex. Like the way
you didn't know where it was going to go. Like exactly. Like there was even a part of me that thought, like, maybe this is actually going to turn into not. Maybe it would be silly if like she just fell for him. Like that right. Seems impossible. But maybe she could, feel. There could be some sort of connection, like she could provide some sort of companionship with him, or he just needs someone to sort of bury his head, like he just needs to embrace her and just like have someone to hold on to, or to like have some sort of I don't know, motherly kind of like almost like at the end of Pichotte when right. Pichotte goes and sucks on that lady's tit, Maybe old Vern's gonna suck on Roberta Weiss's tit.
But like at first he's kind of scary. He looks a little small, but he's like
wiry.
He's wiry and he's hairy and he's got those badass wrap around like the sunglasses, the mountaineering sunglasses with the the cover, you're like completely covered the sides of your eyes.
Yeah.
And there's that moment where like she slips and falls in the river, and he saves her, like pulls her back onto the shore, and And even at that moment, you're thinking like, oh, what's going to happen? Like, is this going to turn into a romance or something?
Yeah, that's the moment.
But then, of course, it doesn't. But I liked how it just kind of kept you unsure of. And then also the actual almost sexual encounter that they have is like, it makes you feel bad for. It makes you feel sympathy for Vern because.
Hold on, before we get to that, like, I want to call attention to the part where.
What's that?
They crop this right here.
Yeah,
it's a Turkish delight.
I thought it was like a giant, like, starburst.
It kind of is. It's just like a big jujube kind of, but it's like it half of it. The yellow part is lemon, and the red part is rose. I got them in Serbia, but anyways, so there's that part where they're going up the side of the mountain, and Vern just, starts going up the mountain and expects her to follow him, and my girlfriend was like, why doesn't she just run away? And I'm just kind of like, and I was just thinking like, yeah, this is probably just a lazy movie where whoever made it just didn't think enough. They're just like, okay. And then she does try to run away, and he just goes, go ahead and fucking run. You're just, you're going to find out that the only way to survive is to be with me. There's the only water around here to drink is up here. And I know you're thirsty. So like when that happened, when he's just like, go ahead and run.
But also he seems to know exactly where she is at all times. Like, he clearly knows the woods back and front. So it doesn't really matter where she goes. There's a couple of attempts where she kind of like is trying to run away, but he always seems to know where she is or where she's going.
Right.
She's very easy to track.
The point I'm just trying to make is that I was kind of like, oh no, this is just a stupid movie that doesn't actually care about what it's about at all. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, oh no, it actually does. Like, and they are taking it very seriously. Then there's the moment where he saves her. That part actually doesn't really make any sense. The way that they edit it is kind of like she's in the water, and then he pulls out a stick, and then it's kind of just like a bunch of motion, and then she's all of a sudden she's, oh, thank you, and you're like, oh, she just thanked him. Maybe they're gonna have sex, or maybe they're gonna be friends. Who knows? Finally, then the moments when Vern is like being very sexually aggressive and just being like, come on, take off your clothes. It's actually a little bit scary. Like, you're just kind of like, oh shit, he's gonna fucking force his hairy little body all over this fucking girl.
He's pretty ripped.
Yeah, he is pretty ripped for a little guy like that, little wiry guy like that.
He's got like a Jesus Christ physique.
Mm-hmm. Canadian Jesus. He definitely would be a good actor to play Jesus Christ in a Passion of the Christ production, the Resurrection of the Christ in Canada. But anyways, he goes into he takes her. He cuts up her clothing. He slashes her cute little outfit.
Almost. He slashes it up just enough so you can see that it's slashed, but not enough where she's nude.
That's right.
I just want to warn our listeners: there's no nudity in this film.
There is no nudity in this film, unfortunately. But to be clear, she's wearing kind of like a tracksuit, and he slashes the tracksuit all the way up the front, but she's wearing a T-shirt underneath.
She's wearing like 3 shirts underneath.
She's wearing one shirt underneath. He slashes through that enough so that we can see her
undershirt.
Her sad bra, her kind of like,
jogging bra.
Like jogging bra, yeah. But it's not like a sports bra. It's sort of like, it doesn't matter. We don't have to get into details about the bra. I'm not a fucking bra expert, by the way. I've only seen like maybe 1 or 2 in my entire life.
Maybe email us if you know what type of bra she's wearing.
Yeah, go check out this film. I think the reason why I saw it was because it recently had like a physical release, so I think people are going to be rediscovering it later. But anyone who knows a lot about bras, check out this movie and let us know the specifics of the. Of
it's some kind of like Canadian style bra or something.
Yeah, it was actually developed to house the breasts of Celine Dion, to house her French tits. I was going to say that he drags her into the cabin, he pulls off his shirt, and she's like, oh, I'm shy, let me turn around, and she tries to grab a gun and get the drop on him. Obviously it doesn't work. She's not prepared to shoot him. Also, the gun's not loaded. He throws her onto the bed. He gets on top of her. He starts fondling her breasts over the top of the bra. And then, lo and behold, he comes in his pants. And, it's really obvious. He just blows probably like, a month's worth of cum into his pants. Like it was
a life's worth of cum.
A life's worth of cum. Just a wax dart just comes out of his penis.
I also want to say that the clothes that he's wearing, I don't know what they are, but they look like they're always wet.
Wet, yeah.
Like they're always very slick and shiny. Even when he's completely dry, his clothes are shiny and wet looking.
It's like the most thin, delicate leather that you could possibly get your hands on. It's not leather, but it looks almost like satin or something. It's a very odd material.
It looks like he's covered in like he's wearing wax clothes or something.
Maybe that's because he's just coming all the time. So his clothes are
it's just caked in jizz. He's just
a jizzy ass Vern. He falls asleep next to Our Lady, and they sort of fall asleep kind of like a married couple, like back to back, and then they wake up the next day, and the next time you see them, Vern's fishing. The girl also compliments Vern on being a good cook. He's I don't know. There's all these little things like here and there that kind of make you think that the relationship is going to kind of turn around,
right?
But it doesn't really happen. She goes, why don't you let me go? I want to leave. I want to get out of here. And he's like, look, just because things didn't work out last night because I came in my pants doesn't mean that they're not going to work out tonight. I'm going to try again, and this time I'm not going to come in my pants. I'm going to come either in you or on you. I don't know. He doesn't say all those things, but that's the implication. Right. So she tries to get away, and then what happens? She runs into
Grizzly Adams, Dan Haggerty, who at first we just think is just a passing fisherman, but it is then revealed that this is actually Vern's dad.
Right, and my first thought was like, oh damn, they're this is sort of like a I spit on your grave sort of thing where the cop is down with the rapists. Like,
see, now I kind of, not that I'm an expert on Dan Haggerty, but I get the feeling that Dan Haggerty is not interested in playing a rapist. Dan Haggerty always plays a nice guy, and I feel like that's also one of the, I mean, there's a whole, like, once Dan Haggerty is on the scene, a lot more the tone of the film kind of changes. There's a lot more sort of like, let's explore nature. Look how beautiful this countryside is. Look over there. Look at the mountain goats. Look over here. Like
rock sheep.
Look at the rock sheep, and it becomes like there's a touch of nature documentary that suddenly happens when Dan Haggerty shows up, and he's also like the fact that Dan Haggerty, he's so nice and he's so kind. It almost like it almost works against the film, because it's sort of you're sort of like, how is Vern and Dan Haggerty, how could they have any connection at all? They seem like completely, there's other than a name only, there doesn't seem to be any connection between the two of them.
Well, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily agree, because their relationship seems to me like like what it actually is, like an older father, and then also kind of like a son that's probably in his early 30s, that looks like he's in his early or mid 30s, but kind of has the temperament of like a 17-year-old, and he's kind of like he listens to what his dad says, but he's like
He doesn't like it,
bitches
though.
about it. Yeah, he bitches about everything, but at the same time the authority is there.
Right, but I feel like in these types of relationships, like there's a little bit of a back and forth where like it seems like the way that Vern behaves and the way he acts is just in complete opposition to everything that, like, even the philosophy of life like is different. Like
That's
like
true.
in the whole, in that whole, like, when I was talking about like the nature documentary where Dan Haggerty is like going on and on about like nature and what things mean and things have meaning, and he definitely feels like, there's a spirit going on in the woods, and Vern is just like completely nihilistic. Like nothing means anything.
That's because Joe, Dan Haggerty's character, definitely has fucked because Vern exists, So I mean,
Right.
Dan Haggerty, we know that he's fucked at least one time in his life. So
Sure.
he's able to have that kind of philosophy of life. But Vern, I mean, it's not explicitly stated, but I'm pretty, sure, based on his behavior, and also, as you just said, his philosophy of life, that he's an incel in the truest sense, not in the internet sense, but in the
Right.
involuntarily celibate.
But I feel like in the sense that they're family, and they're also like extremely close family. They're the only two people in the woods. Like they're the only two people that each of them see for like who knows how long, years.
Well,
So
I think
the fact that like they're so contrary, and like even if they had like played it a little bit like, like, okay, now we're fighting, and now we're kind of agreeing on something, and now we're fighting again. Like to have that sort of like realistic family balance would have at least made me feel like, oh, these guys are related. But the fact that they're so especially
different.
Vern they're so different, and Vern is so opposed to like everything that like just doesn't seem to like his dad at all, and only in his dad's presence is its sole purpose is to keep him from fucking this girl. Like that's all the dad is to him, and it just didn't, like, I just wasn't 100%. It didn't like necessarily bother me totally, but I wasn't 100% confident that like, oh, these guys are father and son.
I guess for me, I just feel like Vern would chill out if he was able to fuck once in a while, but to your point, or maybe not to your point, but more to just kind of like, as it serves the film, I feel like that relationship is good because it keeps the tension up. It's kind of like, it's like, oh damn, like it's not like everything's okay now that Joe is here, now that Dan Haggerty is here. Vern is still very much a threat, and now it's kind of like, and there's something kind of like, there's a new element in the film that kind of, keeps interest. Okay, who's this guy? Okay, we got a new character. I'm back in. Like I'm not bored of the film. It was kind of getting old, but now we got this new character. Great. Okay, I'm back in. What's going on here? And he kind of saves the day, but then it's also like, oh, okay, he's an older guy. He's definitely he's not helpless, but at the same time, Vern is just seems like a little vicious animal who's kind of waiting for any kind of opportunity to wait till Dan Haggerty falls asleep, which does happen. I mean, he tries to go after the girl when Dan Haggerty falls asleep.
I mean, this is definitely not like the family dynamic in Texas Chainsaw. Like, this is like Dan Haggerty is just the nicest, kindest, most thoughtful, most gentle, most wonderful man I've ever seen in a movie. And Vern is the most vile, vicious, nasty, rotten. Like, even like Vern dresses, he's wearing like the wet clothes and he looks like this wet rat all the time. And Dan Haggerty's just like, he just looks like a guy who's just like camping. Like, he's wearing a sweater and whereas Vern actually looks like a deranged, like homeless, man that lives in the woods. Whereas Dan actually looks, he looks civilized. Like, he looks like a civilized guy with a beard who's, who's just
Dan Haggerty is
nature.
strolling through the woods, whereas Vern is, capering around like a goblin, all the time. He's he's like a little weird fucking satyr. But okay, so anyways, like let's kind of. I feel like we've kind of gotten a bit stagnant here. Let's move on to the part where the helicopter trophy hunters come.
The German trophy hunter.
That's right. They're German, or the helicopter pilot. The guide is German.
No, it was the helicopter pilot was not German. It was the hunter, the guy who shoots, because he was right. Like, this will look good on my son's on my son's wall back in Germany, and then he gets
good
shot.
Accent. This creates like a little bit of a problem because Dan Haggerty is kind of like, just if you just trust me, I'll take you back to civilization in a couple of days, but we have to do things my way because I love my boy and whatever, and I don't want to get the police involved, so just trust me and it'll be fine. These trophy hunters come down and she can't help herself, and she makes the sort of the unwise decision to run over and try to, escape with them. Vern does not allow that to happen, and he ends up shooting
the German.
He shoots the German. The helicopter pilot manages to escape without the girl, and then this fucks everything up because now there's going to be like, people looking for them. All of a sudden, it's not as.
But like, there's a little moment where Dan Haggerty kind of blames the girl, sort of like, "Why did you have to run away? Why didn't you trust me?" And I was kind of like,
"Yeah,
well,
I agree with that.
I don't, because prior to that, Dan Haggerty to the girl was like, "Hey, you want to go see something cool?" And she's like, "Well, actually, no. I kind of just want to go home." "Oh, no. Let me show you something really cool over here."
Right.
Really? I mean, I really just want to. Oh, come on. I'll show you something really nice. So he drags her to go see the goat show. She doesn't want to. She doesn't fucking want to see the goats. She wants to go home. He creates the situation that then causes this chaos. So I blame Dan Haggerty.
He couldn't have accounted for the helicopter though. He was just. And also, this guy is the. When I was in Belgrade a little while ago. I encountered a man very much like Dan Haggerty, who was like probably around 80 years old, and he was an animal wrangler, and he had 2 wolves at his house and also like a full-grown bear. I don't know if you saw that on my Instagram. Did you not see that?
I don't remember seeing the full-grown bear.
This fucking guy, I'm sitting in his dining room, and he's like, "Oh, hold on, I'll be right back." And we're sitting in his dining room, inside of his house. All of a sudden, through the fucking door, a full-grown bear comes into the house and sits down at the table on this chair that he has at the head of the table. And I was wondering too.
Did you shit your pants?
I damn near shit my pants because the thing is fucking huge. Like, it's the size of a fucking grand piano, right? That this fucking bear comes through the door.
It's like 2 Shaquille O'Neals.
It's hard to. I'd say just about as big as one Shaquille O'Neal. But
that's how I was wondering. Everything.
I was wondering too. Yeah, orders of Shaquille O'Neal. But I was going to say that the chair at the head of the table was like made of like iron. It was like welded iron. It was different from the other chairs, and I was kind of like, "What's up with that?"
Chair.
What is he? What does he have?
That was
like a
bear
weird
chair.
Why does he have a weird throne? Is this where he sits? Like, what's up with this fucking guy? So then this bear comes in, and he gives me just a bunch of like dog food, I guess, and he's like, here, go ahead, feed the bear.
Bear chow.
Yeah, so I'm feeding the bear by hand, and just trying my best just to be as calm and as like, because every time you see one of those bear videos where the bear just goes crazy, it's always someone flinching or putting their, the bear looks at them and they put their hands up to stop it. So I was just trying to keep my hands down, not make eye contact, and just kind of try to be as chill as possible, because I don't know where this fucking bear is.
You don't want to talk politics to the bear either.
You don't want to talk. You don't want to talk about Kosovo to the Serbian bear, but
trans rights too. That's right.
They don't. Well, no, I think I know where the bear would stand on those. I think we probably are pretty compatible in terms of those beliefs. But anyways, I was going to say that then the fucking guy, the Wrangler guy, takes one of the bear treats and he is like about to feed it to me, and he's like, put it in your mouth. And I'm just like, what? And he's like, just put it in your mouth. You want me to eat it? No, just put it in your mouth. So he puts it in my mouth, and then the bear comes and eats it out of my mouth. And I'm just like, this is crazy. What I'm doing right now is insane. I have no idea who this guy is.
You put a bear treat in the hole of your penis?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a fucking, what do they call that shit? Anal beads, I'm just like shitting bear treats in this bear's mouth. Just ploop, 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 ploop. But anyways, yeah, then he takes the bear out, and I was just like, holy fuck, that was crazy. Why did I bring this up? Well, I brought
Next
this
thing
up
you know, you're in Serbian film 2, bear,
right.
cocaine bear, whatever the fuck.
Electric Boogaloo.
Serbian bear.
Right. The reason I bring this up is just because, like, this is definitely a guy, as we were leaving, the guy who was showing us around was like, yeah, that guy... he's a little loopy. Like he's always doing weird stuff. Like, he'd be like, hey, do you want to go see my wolves in the backyard? And then we'd be like, yeah, sure. And then he's like, okay, after I'm done my coffee, he'd bring something up, and then we would say, sure. And then he'd be like, whoa, slow down, calm down. I have a coffee to finish. Like he would do stuff like that. And when he would hand you stuff, you'd go to grab it and he would move it away. And then you would move it, you'd grab it where, in the new position that it was in. And it's like, he's the point of mentioning all this is that this is the kind of guy who just spends all of his life talking with animals and dealing with animals. So he just has a way of just communicating. This is how I kind of maybe see Dan Haggerty, like he's just got his own little thing going on, and he can't even conceive why you wouldn't want to go see the rock sheep, And also, by the way, his ultimate plan, I think, is taking her in the direction of the road or something. But he's not going to say that, because he's going to ruin the experience of enjoying nature. That mountain guys who just deal with nature stuff, like living outdoors, or just dealing with like wild animals all the time, I think just have a different way of approaching life. Maybe
this stuff was this all this like, let's go see the goats and shit. Like, I feel like this was the stuff that they got. Like they were looking for somebody to be in the movie, and Dan Haggerty came on the scene, and they were like, and Dan Haggerty's probably like, I don't want to be in this fucking abduction, rape, kidnapping movie. It's disgusting.
I want to be in Elves.
And so then they were like, well, look, how about like you can give, we're going to be in the Canadian wilderness. You can kind of like go out and like talk about the goats, and you can observe the goats, and so it'll be like a whole this like nature element to it, and that's probably what like hooked him into the gig, and he was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it.
All right, so the stakes are piled on when the German is killed, the guide flies away, everything's all whatever, like maybe we disagree on kind of like who's at fault. But anyways, this sort of raises the stakes, and now there's more pressure on them to kind of like, they can't just go and hand her back, because now Vern is a murderer. Hey, take off your clothes and let me fuck you. I killed for you. I earned you, is something he says later, which is amazing. But just to kind of like skip through, because we've been talking about fucking Abducted for like damn near 40 minutes at this point. Spoiler, here comes the spoiler territory. Dan Haggerty ends up ends up having to kill Vern while he's on sort of like a train track, a raised train track. During this part, the girl is wearing underwear. Like she's wearing her t-shirt and her jacket, but then only like a pair of like white kind of like long butt underwear. Roberta Weiss, which is pretty nice. She definitely has a very nice figure. Those legs go all the way up, and that's basically the end of the movie. Vern is killed by his father.
But there is one moment, and this to me was the weakest moment in the film, when because this is after Vern attacks his dad and leaves him for dead and takes the girl back and is going to bring her back to the cabin and keep her, follow through with his original plan to keep her as a sex slave. She starts getting undressed and she does this thing where she throws her sweatpants in his face and steals the rifle from him. So now she's got the gun on him, and she can shoot him. She's got a clear shot. She can shoot him. She then sort of mouths the philosophy: if I shoot you, it's just going to make me the same type of horrible person that you are, and that's not what I do.
Right.
I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be like you. And she runs away without shooting him, and then that kind of just causes him to keep tracking her down, and then somebody else has to shoot him. So, I guess my question is like, when did that sort of become a sort of common plot point where the sort of hero or the protagonist of the movie has to make that declaration of like, I'm not going to kill because that's going to make me the same as you, so that's why I'm not going to do it. And that happens a lot in movies.
It's just some shit. It's just some shit that happened. Exactly what you just said. Oh,
my question is like, when did that start? What was the first movie to do that? Because it's an extremely popular like plot device to keep either, in this case, it keeps the movie going, or it's such a cop out, and it's so not
realistic.
It's so not realistic, and it's also wrong. Like the fact that just because I'm killing somebody who's trying to kill me, that makes me like them. Like just like even the foundation of that philosophy is fucked up. But it seems to be it's so popular that it's used over and over again. What's up with that?
Yeah, we gotta put a stop to that bullshit.
Who started it?
I think it was probably Harry Truman. But I'm 100% like on your side. I don't know who fucking started it, but it is just like a big groaner. Like, okay, the movie gives up here. It's kind of like when I was saying before when he goes up that cliff and you kind of say, why doesn't she just fucking run away? And then she does run away, and the movie surprises you by being a little more clever. In this same way, the movie kind of like doesn't it. The movie lets you down. Is the movie going to be clever again? Is she going to shoot him and we're going to take it from there? Or, does she have another plan or something? And it's just going to be the thing that the Boone Collins saw in another movie. I saw this happen before. That's how Boone Collins sounds. I saw this happen before, and this time what we'll do is we'll have this bitch give a little slice of her philosophy about how she's not going to kill because she doesn't want to be like Vern.
See, I imagine Boone Collins sounding like Bob and Doug McKenzie,
Yeah. Oh, I can't even do that voice. I ironically can't do that voice. But I do like the parts where Vern is smelling her pants and being like, I love the smell of your pussy and your asshole. It's delicious. That shit's awesome. But then
he's great. Like he was really good. Like he really was a great maniac.
Right.
Very entertaining. And very believable. I would give this 3 eggplants.
I give it 3.5, just because the extra half is because it surprised me, because I was like, I was ready for it to be terrible, and it was like, what a surprise. But yeah, definitely
the fact that you recommended it, sort of like it kind of took that surprise away, because I figured like, well, this can't be that bad if you're recommending it.
Well, that's awfully nice of you to say. I've definitely recommended things to you that you've hated before.
Yeah, but I knew they were going to suck before you said anything.
Death Becomes Her is a good movie, everyone. You should all watch it. Okay, so I mean,
watch Abducted instead.
Right, watch Abducted. Well, yeah, I definitely would recommend Abducted instead. But you know, although we have 2 more movies, and the one with Rip Torn is one that I would like to talk about. I almost want to, just because Abducted sets us up so easily to talk about The Savage Is Loose, which I watched again yesterday, just to because I felt like there's a lot of moments in that movie that are like quote unquote pure cinema, like where it's just something silently happening, and like you're just like, there's a lot of dialogue, and there's a lot of fucking contemplative conversation about kind of what should be done, and whatever, sort of like deep discussion about kind of the nature of man, and like there's this kind of stuff, but then there's also like a lot of stuff like that's just silence and activity. The part that I'm thinking of, I am jumping ahead. We should start from the beginning. But the part I'm thinking of is like the parts where like the boy is an adult, and the mother hands him food, and he puts his hands over her hands, like he wants to just get a little caress of her hand as he tries to grab something. Like there's a lot of little things like that. George C. Scott directed this film. This is his first film that he directed after Rage. And everyone hated Rage. I don't think Rage is bad at all. I think Rage is actually kind of a cool movie.
Is that the one where like they're like sheep herders, and the sheep get poisoned, and that's all right.
The son gets poisoned. Yeah, but the criticisms usually happen from George C. Scott's like direction. Like he'll do weird stuff with slow motion, and that's what everyone always says. But it's sort of like, it's easy to just overlook that. Like, I mean, if you look at the set pieces in that movie, like the action parts, and like where he's confronting people and fucking people up and blowing stuff up, like all that stuff. Then there's also kind of just the whole cover up. Like the movie's about this cover up, which is unusual for the time. I think that it's 71 is Rage, and just this sort of like. The movie starts with this sort of tragedy, and the government almost gets away with it, but there's just this one loose thread, and the loose thread is that the kid is dead. That's actually not really a loose thread. What's the loose thread is just that the father survived, and there's sort of questions that need to be answered. So we have to do something about this father, and that's the loose end. So it's about kind of covering this up, and it looks to me, I'm being the voice of the government. Like it looks to us that this father is probably not going to survive. Like the nerve gas is going to eventually kill him after a few days, but there's this period of time where he's sort of a wild card, so we have to kind of do something about him. And anyways, we're not talking about Rage, but the general consensus of critics at the time was that Rage was awkwardly and clumsily directed. So this is him, and it's got to be tough for old George C. Scott to hear that kind of shit, especially since he is kind of like a Hollywood fixture, let's say. And so he goes ahead and he does The Savage Is Loose, which on its face is an insane idea. Like it's what's it? 1973 is this one? Yes, 1973. Or I'm going to make sure about that.
Is this an original script, or is this based on something?
1974. No. This is George C. Scott did not write this, and it's not. Oh, you know what? It actually is a. it is like an original screenplay. It wasn't based on any kind of novel or anything. But interestingly enough, Frank de Felita was the guy who wrote the novel that the film The Entity was based on, also titled The Entity.
Okay.
And then there's also a guy called Max Ehrlich, who did a bunch of fucking shit. I don't know. Don't really recognize any of these films. The Naked Edge. Does that ring a bell, from 1961?
I don't know. It's such a generic title. I don't know.
He wrote one Star Trek episode.
Oh yeah, I like that.
He wrote an episode of The Untouchables. He's just mostly. I look at his resume. This guy Max Ehrlich, and he's mostly like a television writer.
Okay.
But in any case, the guy who wrote the novel for The Entity was involved in the screenplay. George C. Scott got a hold of this, and he was like, "Oh, I love it. The son wants to fuck the mother. That's awesome. I love it." And he wants to make this movie for whatever reason. So okay, fuck. It takes place, I think, in around like 1912. There's a husband and wife who crash, who are shipwrecked on an island with a very small son. The son grows up, and we kind of come into the movie when he's around 12 and just sort of entering adolescence. And he's kind of asking a lot of questions that the parents are having trouble answering. Hey, mommy, what are those two birds doing over there? Or it's actually George C. Scott. Hey, Dad, what are the birds doing over there? Oh, that's what all animals do. They do that to make more little animals. Oh, is that what you and mommy did to make me? Yeah, of course. That's what everyone does. And then it's like, so that means we're animals. Yeah, of course. People are animals too. That's the thing. When I watched the movie yesterday, I was really trying to pay attention to a lot of the fucking dialogue, and what's interesting is sort of what George C. Scott is teaching him, and then what the mother is teaching him, who happens to be George C. Scott's real wife in real life.
Right.
What she's teaching him, and how those two things kind of, one would be okay and the other one would be okay, but them together creates a real terrifying monster. That's kind of, I think, the idea of the film. So the plot of the film, as the kid gets older, as the kid reaches the age of 17, he's played now by a different actor, and the kid is like hornier than you've ever been in your entire life. This kid is the horniest fucking thing in the world, and all he wants to do is fuck his mom, and he's ready to kill to fuck his mom, and that's kind of just why the movie's interesting, because it's like, damn, what a fucking plot. This son is just this like ravenous fucking beast.
You keep using these terms like ravenous and beast, and I mean, I know the movie's called Savage, but that kid is none of those things. He just looks like this very handsome gay man that lives on the island. Like there's nothing there, he has zero he is not intimidating in any way. He's gorgeous. Like he looks like he should be like on Baywatch or something. Like he's just like a real good looking kid, and he exudes no menace.
Okay, so first of all, he's not a kid. Like, I mean, he looks like he's fucking 32 years old. He's supposed to be 17, but he's played by a much older actor. That's for sure. Second thing, I mean, you may find him very attractive, and I suppose I can see.
You're going to sit there and tell me he ain't.
I suppose I can see how another gay man would think.
You're going to sit there and tell me with a straight face
well.
That this guy isn't absolutely gorgeous.
Well, I need to see his beautiful throbbing cock first before I made an assessment.
I'm sure he's made a couple of those movies. You could probably find them somewhere.
He's fucking in good shape, man. I mean, this, like, regardless of how gorgeous he is, he'd fucking give you a run for your money if you had to fight with him hand to hand. I mean, I'm being realistic here. If the kid didn't intimidate you or whatever, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, but I I found that the performance to be pretty good. I found him to be just like sinister and very menacing. You know, I mean, I use the word savage and ravenous and all this kind of stuff to, I guess, to describe what is happening in this film. You know, what we're supposed to just be taking away from this film is that that's what's going on. This kid is just like been raised to be an animal, and he's using all of these things that the father has taught him against his father, because eventually it's his own sex drive that's driving a wedge between the father and the son, and pitting them against each other with the mother as a prize. I think it's a great movie to explain to someone, but it is a little. It is a little sleepy for what it is about. I'll give you that.
I just felt like there was a lot lacking in, like, the premise itself is intriguing, but then when, you know, and the whole sort of build up with when he's a very young child in the first half of the film, and they seem to have a good relationship with him as a child. By they, I mean the parents, George C. Scott and Trish Vanderveer. And everything seems cool. And then all of a sudden he is now this handsome grown man. And it's like a whole scene was missing, where we're thrust into this completely different dynamic where suddenly, like, nobody's talking to each other. The air is just filled with tension and nobody's saying anything. It's just kind of understood that this kid is horny and he has his eyes on mom, but there's no, like, I felt like it needed some, like, a little bit of buildup, like a little bit of, like, we see the changes happening. We see his interest in his mom, and then, like, maybe either mom or dad, like, having a conversation with him about it. It's just like we go from like, oh, he's a nice kid, to, like, suddenly, like, he's this horny guy who just like a horny stranger that they're not even, like, communicating with.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like, it's not handled. It's not handled as clearly as it could be. Like, they could get into all of that. Let's even say that, like, they sit down at the table and the kid is just, like, totally frank. And even, like, the parents understand, like, look, I'm really horny. I'm a grown man and I'm alone on this island and I don't know what to do. Like, what am I supposed to do? Maybe as a family, they could have figured it out. Maybe mom could have been like, look, how about if I just jack you off like once a week, you know, or something like that. How about, like, just, I don't know, like, work something out. Like, maybe they could help him out a little. Yeah. Like, I feel like a conversation could have, but the thing is, like, because I'm thinking like a conversation could have helped the situation, the fact that this kid, or that, you know, he's now a man, he's not a savage. He seems reasonable. Like, he seems like a normal guy who's just very horny in a very difficult situation where he can't fuck. So, like, he's very frustrated. So he's not a savage. He's not an animal. He's not like you can't reason with him. So that also kind of made it not like, if he had just been like a completely, like, crazed animal, I think I would have bought this more. I feel like at the time that we meet him, the second actor, the adult actor, whatever the fuck the guy's name is, you're right. Like, you know, a bunch of time has passed, and what I took it as was, like, any time to reason with him has passed. Like, he's so completely dead set on his goal that he actually is impossible to reason with. Like that's how.
Well, I mean, you're just assuming that we don't see that. It just seems.
Of course we see that. Of course we see that.
No, we don't see any. We don't. There's no like gradual buildup of like, I'm really horny. What am I supposed to do? Well, just read the Bible. Like we don't see, like it's just like I said, we go from he's just a child, and now he's a very horny adult who wants to fuck mom, and nobody's talking to each other. There's just tension. They're all just pretending like it's not going on.
Well, what I'm saying is that
so it's I feel like a scene is missing.
What I'm saying is that he is okay, fine. Like maybe I'm assuming, but I think that his actions, like what he, hey son, stop trying to kill me, stop trying to burn me. I'm upside down right now. My name is George C. Scott.
That happens at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, it all happened. Like I mean, from the point that like the son is being played by that different actor to the end of the film, that all feels like that happens like in a couple days. Am I wrong? Like, does that not feel like just it takes place over maybe a week or something? Like it's the final days of this situation. Yeah, so like, it just seems to me, maybe I am making an assumption. But regardless of whether or not they talked about it or not, and maybe that even says a lot. I mean, hey, mommy, could I? Well, one day, can I marry you? Will you be my wife one day? Oh my God, David, you're such a crazy child. Let's never speak of this again. Like I think that what's that supposed to show us is that their sort of, I don't know, puritanical kind of attitude is like. They're just avoiding it. The idea of like a son having sex with the mother is so ghastly that they don't even want to touch it.
Well, I mean, sure. That conversation happens when he was a child.
Yeah,
and so that type of conversation is very childlike. I mean, you don't have to live on a desert island to experience that notion in a child.
But her response, like the question is very childlike and appropriate for a child, but her response is not very appropriate. Like her response is just to kind of push it under the rug, so to speak, just to kind of like avoid it. Right. And that's maybe that's what the film is kind of, maybe that's sort of one of the points of the film, or maybe, I mean, I'll give you this, that like it's sloppy and kind of like a little unclear about what its messaging is. But let me get to the thing I was saying before about, George C. Scott is like, I'm going to make this kid into a fucking animal because he doesn't need to learn about doing the waltz and fucking having tea parties with a bunch of fucking queers in under the chandelier, back home. He needs to learn how to be how to see in the dark and
survive.
How to hear the leopard in its cave, and how to make no sound, how to have feet that make no sound, and so he's teaching him how to be like this animal. Formidable predator in the woods, in the jungle. And then the mother is like, I don't want to deprive him from all the things that I love in life, which are connected to civility and civilization. And so she's telling him, she's like, oh yeah, we used to dance around the chandelier, and all the girls would come over, and they were beautiful. Mother, are all girls beautiful? Like she's doing it out of love. She doesn't want her son to be an animal. She wants him to have some of the joys of human civilized life, even if he can't experience them himself. She's got sort of a misguided idea there. But, these two things together, sort of this sort of physical kind of ability that surpasses even what George C. Scott can do, because he grows up in the jungle. He really does become an animal. I mean, maybe we don't see it. Maybe we don't see him kind of doing acrobatics and hunting. I mean, there are things where he's going. Remember the time when the dad teaches him to kill those cougar kittens?
Yeah.
Right. Like there's that. Like, be merciless. Like I'm teaching you mercilessness because you need to know this to survive. And then the mother's sort of teaching him about sort of the pleasures of the pleasures of life and stuff, and he's of civilized life. And then these two things together is kind of like it fucks him all up, and he's like, I want to fuck my mom, you know. So
the other thing working against this movie is that there isn't really a good quality version of it.
Oh yeah.
There was a few scenes that it was so dark, like I wasn't really sure what was going on. Like in particular, the scene when I think she finds like some little cave hideout that her son has created, and there's all these kind of like shots, like she's looking around the cave and like seeing these things in the cave of like, look at this, look at this, look at this. And she's like freaking out. I can't tell what they are.
Right.
So, and in my head, I was imagining like maybe he made like a woman out of a pine tree. And like he was like fucking like creating like a fake like scarecrow woman that he was fucking like or something. Right. And then she's like flipping out, but it's really, I can't tell because like this is like probably like some 10th generation VHS rip that I'm watching. Yeah.
Well, the actual distribution of the film is a little interesting because the MPAA's position, I'm reading this off of the Wikipedia, is that incest was like a major theme of the film, and that impacted its rating. It ended up getting the same rating as something like Candy Striped Nurses or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And George C. Scott was like, no, it's about things that are better than those movies. This movie's better than those movies, you know? So he's like, okay, what I'm going to do is bypass the traditional distribution channels and then sell the film directly to regional exhibitors through sales, like through independent sales executives, right?
Okay.
So what that means is like the movie doesn't get like cataloged the same way that it normally would have, and that's why there's not kind of like that good quality kind of version of the film. But then it's like, okay, well, what about video? You know, well, it was released on video by Campbell Devon Productions, which is, I think, a now defunct video distributor. And it's now it's been out of print for fucking years. And, you know, so I think this is one of those things that's like, we're probably, unless someone finds someone finds like the reels in like someone's fucking, like some kind of like storage facility or something, we're probably never going to see this film looking the way that people saw it when they saw it in theaters, which is, you know, it's a shame because like, I think that this film's like not bad at all. But yeah, like, I mean, so much of it is shot in the jungle. I think it was shot in Mexico, and it looking good would do a lot for the enjoyment of this film. You know what I mean? Like just kind of the nature photography of it all. In any case,
and yeah, there's a lot of dark, like scenes in the dark. He's creeping around in the dark,
right?
There's a scene where Trish and George are having intercourse. I'd like to see that in HD.
Sexy George C. Scott is something that I never even considered. You know, like
you didn't consider what during like when he was pretending to be the porn producer in Hardcore.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's the weirdest. You know, George C. Scott is absolutely. You know, he's asexual. He's like a giant slug or something. You know, he reproduces by splitting into two, and that's how he reproduces. He's not actually like a sexual being. But yeah, in this movie you get to see him fuck almost always on the. Actually, no, like George C. Scott is always on the bottom. His wife rides him. He's a lazy lover. You also kind of get to see him kind of like towards the end of the film, you know, with his shirt off and like kind of all greased up and looking all like looking as much as he can as like a kind of a tough kind of action hero kind of guy. So, you know, if you've ever wanted to, if there's ever been a chance to get horny by watching George C. Scott, this might be at this age.
We have to warn viewers that, like, if you're even though this movie is about incest, there is zero nudity in it, none. Yeah. In fact, I think Trish Vanderveer's wearing like 16 bras to make sure that her breasts don't fly out.
They don't just fly out in every which way. She does look really good in this movie, though. Like they're when you do a movie like this, you have to kind of like make the audience. Some work has to be done to make the audience understand why the boy wants to fuck his mom so much. And if his mom was just some busted old weird lady, we would all just be kind of like, ew, you know. But we're kind of
you get it. You definitely
you're watching this movie and you're just kind of like, huh, yeah, no. I mean, you know, she's definitely postmenopausal, but I definitely hit it. That's for sure.
Did you ever see The Last Run? That was the movie, I think, where he met Trish, and they hit it off.
I tried to watch Day of the Dolphin recently. Did you ever see that?
I've seen that. No.
Yeah, that's another one where I think they're in they're in the film together. It's like,
but I liked Last Run. It was good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like overall, I watched Rage, and I watched The Savage Is Loose, and when you watch George C. Scott for too long, you really kind of get sick of him, you know. Like you're kind of like, get this guy out of here. Although I do like his sort of the thing that he always does, which is sort of this like eruption of rage, like an eruption of sort of anger. He's the master of that.
He's got to play a certain role, and I feel like if he's playing that role, it works. If he's trying to be like super cool or sexy.
Yeah,
it doesn't really work as well.
Yeah, George C. Scott is absolutely not a sexy man. I don't think that he should. Well, God rest his soul.
I miss that era of Hollywood when Hollywood was littered with not sexy men as, you know, lead actors.
Well, I mean, George C. Scott in the 50s. And earlier, like, I mean, he wasn't a bad looking man. He definitely had a lot of character in his face, but like he was, I would say that he would be classified as like a handsome guy, but it's just funny just because as he gets older, he just hangs on to his place as a Hollywood fixture and gets, I guess, a lot of power to start making his own films and stuff and casts himself. He's kind of like, yeah, I'm still sexy, you know. I'm gonna have sex with my wife on screen while my son watches, while my movie son watches. People are gonna love that. But in any case, I don't know. Savage Is Loose. Like, I mean, the only copy that I can really find is the one on YouTube.
I found one on Daily Motion.
Was it better or worse?
It seemed to be about the same.
Okay. Given the quality of the copy, The Savage Is Loose is for me like a 2. I think it's worth watching. I think there's some good dialogue moments. And the concept, you can't go wrong with the concept. Swiss Family Robinson, except the kid wants to fuck the mom. But yeah, if I, you know, hey, Vinegar Syndrome or Synapse or Severin or whatever, if you can find like those reels.
Hey, Pornhub.
Yeah, hey, Pornhub. Oh no, my mom got caught in the dryer. I'm gonna fuck her in the ass now. In the laundry.
See, like everything you're saying, like makes it sound better than it is. None of this happens in the film, and then also we got to say that the ending is like completely confusing. I'm not even really sure like what.
That deserves some time. Actually, go ahead. Tell us about the ending.
So the kid is he gets to jump on George and ties him up and like hog ties him and hangs him from a tree and like sets him on fire or something, and then and then he goes after the mom and chases her down, and then right before it seems like he's going to do something, he just kind of like falls to his knees and starts crying. Yeah. And then we see that George C. Scott has escaped whatever situation he was in, and he seems like he's about to like stab the kid in the back with a spear, but then he kind of doesn't. The wife tells him no, because maybe she's finally like, look, I'll fuck the kid. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, we're not really sure what, like, it just seems like, is he not horny anymore? Like, why? Like, what is going on?
I don't think it was that confusing, but go on.
So then it just ends that way, where like that she's hugging him and he's crying, and George C. Scott seems to be holding off on running a spear through his back.
Well, okay. So the way it actually ends is that happens. The woman doesn't alert the son that George C. Scott is behind him, and she, with her hand, pushes the spear away.
Right.
George C. Scott backs off, disappears, and then the son and the mother start kissing passionately, and then they kind of like, go into sort of like a laying position, but like off camera, and then we just hear the waves going and credits roll. So it's implied that the mother is having sex with the kid. That's how it ends. The kid gets his way.
I didn't get that.
Well, I mean, they kiss passionately, So I mean, that's sort of your indicator right there. If you didn't remember that,
I mean, I remember them kissing. I guess it didn't read to me as like sexual kissing. Like she just seemed to be like kissing his face.
No, she kisses him on the lips with
tongue,
with a little bit of, it's not like devil's honey level tongue, but definitely this is not the kind of kiss that you would want to receive from your children, or maybe you would, I don't know, depending on the kind of person that you are, and depending on the time of life, depending on whether or not you're on a desert island or not. But in any case, what's confusing to me is that, like, I was thinking about this last night, that I feel like this sort of like, crumbling before his mother and kind of like, collapsing before her and burying your head in her bosom is very son and mother. It is a very son and mother experience or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I feel like, I think he's had enough of that shit, for like his life, for like his entire life. That's what he's been doing. Every time that he every time that he cuts himself on a fucking starfish or whatever, he'll go run into his mother and like, okay, all I'm trying to say is that she's always been available to him for that. Like she's always been available to him to kind of be a mother. But when he kills when he kind of immobilizes his dad, and he like, he set him on fire, basically leaves his dad to die. And then he's like, all right, I'm going to go fucking take my prize now. And he approaches the mother. I felt like it would have been so much better, and it would have solved a lot of the problems that you have with the film if he just raped the mother. Like if he just tore her clothes off, and he was like, and he wasn't treating her like a mother anymore. If he was that much of a savage, and he just was not treating her like, I just don't see you as a mother anymore. Like I'm pure animal impulse now. That I felt is what the movie kind of should have been, but George C. Scott didn't have the balls. He wanted to make the movie kind of.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like he wanted to make the movie kind of feel more like the son feels regret, like what,
well, that's what I was
done?
Like. I was thinking of Lord of the Flies, where like it kind of like reaches this totally, like that's more of like an example of like, children turning into real savages, and then once the authority figure steps onto the island, suddenly like they're reduced to children again, they're crying. Children, yeah. So I was thinking, like, is that what's going on here? Like the kid, like he actually is confronted by the mother, who's actually like, please and don't do this, and suddenly he's like having like because he's not a savage. He is civilized to some degree. So I was just thinking like he was having this epiphany of like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, that's why he doesn't do what you're saying. Like there's this epiphany that he's having, this sort of the civilization is coming through at that moment. And he's sort of like, what am I doing? I can't do this. This is ridiculous. I love my mother. I don't want to hurt her, blah, 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 blah. And because he's in that state, I guess I wasn't reading the mother's response as like, okay, well, I guess now that you're being nice, now I'll fuck you.
Well, that is take a look at the last like 3 minutes of that film and tell me that that's not what the fucking thing is saying.
No, I definitely believe you.
Yeah,
I definitely believe that I probably misread it, but it's there's still like it's still confusing what's happening.
How about this? He grabs her and he starts pulling off all those fucking petticoats and shit, and he has her, prone and exposed, and he's just driven by like sexual impulse, but then at that moment, how about this? He comes in his pants, and just like Vern, yeah, comes in his pants, and then he gets post nut clarity. But I just felt like he, for him to kind of like just crumble before his mother like that, and there just to be this sense of regret and shame. It happened too early. I think that he needed to do more before he felt regret and shame. I think he needed to kind of like, the other
thing that kind of doesn't really
open.
Necessarily make sense with what you're saying. Like the mother's so she's kissing him passionately. She's going to fuck him right there on the beach. And George C. Scott is like, he's just standing right over there. Like George C. Scott's going to be okay with that.
He's going to, no, I mean, it's, you see,
that's why, like, cause that's the other aspect that made it confusing. Like she's kind of like, no, don't kill him. Let me fuck him first. Like, that's sort of like what's going on? That doesn't really make sense.
The way it's framed is George C. Scott's in frame. Then when the son kind of like comes up and he's kissing the mother, George C. Scott is obscured by the two of them. And then when they kind of like move down again, George C. Scott is gone. So it's implied that George C. Scott has backed off and he's just gone off to putz around on the other beach while. So
the movie's now saying that he's like, okay, I see. He wants. Let's just let him fuck you.
Well, I think it's less about I'm okay with letting my son fuck my wife and more about I can't kill my son. I think that's sort of the. There's two kind of things going on here. It's like, I don't want my son to fuck my wife, but also he's my son and I don't want to kill him. And it turns out that these two things are in direct opposition to one another, and I have to make a decision. He was going to kill him until the wife was like, don't kill him. So he kind of wanted to. Yeah. But I don't know. I felt like that whole there's a lot going on there, and it's very clumsy. Like it needs a little. It needed a little bit more clarity. But I do agree with you that I feel like he was trying to do too much, and he should have just had the kid grab the mother, rip her clothes off and start fucking her, and then George C. Scott kills him or something. Right. Right as he comes, like the spear just
goes
up.
through his through his ass, through the penis and into the mother or something.
Right. That's great. I like that. Before we kind of wrap this up, I also want to mention too that the plan that George C. Scott and what's her name again?
Trish Vanderveer.
Vanessa Vanderveer. Yeah,
Trish.
Trish Vanderveer and George C. Scott. The plan that they have is like, let's make a raft and get off this island and leave him here. That's their plan.
Oh, right.
Like it's like we can't. I don't think that either of us are ready to jerk this kid off. So let's just escape and leave him here and let him.
Yeah, there's just a lot of ideas, conflicting ideas that kind of they're not going to sit down and have a conversation, but they're going to like secretly build a raft and just like leave him there. Like it's just
he ends up destroying their raft as well.
And then and this is also the issue of like how dark the picture was. Is like there's a whole thing where like he's building a lock for the hut so he can't get in, the son can't get in. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of like, it's a fucking hut. Like if the kid wants to get in, he's gonna get in. Like
you don't even have nails.
It's not like this like special locked door is gonna keep him out. Like he's literally he's there. Like that scene where he's fucking Trish Vanderveer, like they're having George C. Scott and Trish are having sex, and they stop and they're like,
he's listening.
Where is he? And he's like, well, I think he's out there. And George is like, well, I put a lock on the door. He can't get in. And meanwhile he's like looking through like a fucking 4-foot hole in the side of the fucking hut, like looking at him, fucking like
yeah.
Well, there's just a lot of like incongruous thoughts going on here. I mean, I appreciate the spirit of the film, but I feel like if you want a better incest desert island movie, Blue Lagoon is still the better choice.
Yeah, but I mean, fucking your beautiful sister. And contrastly, like fucking your beautiful young brother is kind of like, I could see that. But like the idea of fucking your mom is way more audacious,
Right, but like you don't get you get more of the tension and the romance in Blue Lagoon than you get here.
I like how it really is presented as just like a violent act in this movie. Like there's absolutely no romance. This is something that he's,
and also like the kids in Blue Lagoon are like retarded. Like they don't know anything. They don't have any guidance. They show up on this island with some fat sailor who dies fairly quickly. So they're on their own and they just they're making up the universe that they live in as they go. They don't know what civilization is really.
Right.
Whereas this kid in The Savage is Loose is fairly civilized. He still has two Victorian era parents who are guiding him. So if this kid in The Savage was loose, was a little brain damaged or a little bit more like mentally retarded, I feel like this would have been a better film, because it would be like there's no reasoning with him. He's retarded. He doesn't know, he's like a horny retard. He's just like humping the trees, humping the fucking rocks. Like he's just like, he doesn't. What are we supposed to do with him? He's retarded. We can't reason with him. Like this kid seems like you can reason with him.
They're having sex inside the hut, and he's just banging his head against the logs on the outside.
Yeah, like that would have been great. Like if he was like if when George C. Scott and Trish are having sex, like if he was just like outside moaning and banging his head against a rock. That would have been more exciting. I think this needs to be remade. This needs to be remade by a better director.
Yeah, well, yeah. George C. Scott, famously not a good director. I always want to give him the benefit of the doubt because so many people came down on him for Rage, but I don't know. This one it is absolutely clumsy. What did I say already? Did I say 2? Because I'm not sure 2. What I said before, but for me, it's
I think you said 2. Yeah, I give it 2.
Yeah. But like I said before, Severin or Vinegar Syndrome, if you guys can come out with a fucking nice release of this somehow, that'd be cool. Use fucking AI.
Error 444.
Oh, no. I think Error 444 is, isn't that specifically for Hong Kong shit? preservation.
Hey, maybe they want to spread their wings and do some George C. Scott films.
Spread their legs and do a little Trish Vanderveer film.
Do The Savage is Loose.
Yep. Okay, great. So what do we say? We said, what did you say, 3 for Abducted?
3 for Abducted, 2 for The Savage is Loose.
Right. For me, 3.5 for Abducted and 2 for The Savage is Loose. And that's the show, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.